1, 2, 3.
What?
And that was not
It's okay.
as successful as I'd wanted it
That's
to be.
okay.
We have a bit of a situation. We have the 10th swarm, and Gerald and I have been tasked with catching it.
It's been a little bit busy.
We've been busy little bees. The goal is no one gets stung, because when someone gets stung, the pheromones that bees release then tell the other bees to come and sting, so that's a real party. So the goal is no one gets stung.
All right, I am getting the smoker ready, and we've got a sugar water bottle that is full. I'm gonna get this going.
And the reason we have smokers is because as we are trying to redirect the bees, everywhere that we spray the smoke, the bees don't want to be. The goal here is to basically miraculously get all of the bees all at once into this box, which is harder than it probably sounds, but the most important bee to get in the box is the queen. And so what we're going to try to do is get under the center of the swarm. We're going to shake it down, and basically if we can get the queen into the box, everyone else will follow. So interesting fact, bee swarms are generally between 10 and 30,000 bees gathered around their queen, and right now we're spraying them with sugar water, which will basically help them to cluster together around the queen and hopefully cause them to drop as a single unit as much as we can possibly make happen.
Am I in danger of being stung?
Yes.
Yeah, you are, but also just like the other thing is that these bees have no resources to protect, so they're actually not very aggressive right now. You're only gonna get stung if you get a bee on you and then swat at it, or somehow kind of make it feel threatened. Because right now, these bees are not out for blood, they're out to protect their queen. Okay?
Now, tell me when I think I'm right below it, right?
Yes, ma'am, you're good.
Okay, so I want you to grab the biggest branch that you can get your hands on that are right where they are.
Yeah,
Coming off of, yep. And so tell me when, if you can, lift and shake down hard one good time.
Okay.
Tell me when.
Okay, you ready? I'm gonna count to 3, I'm gonna lift up, and then I'm gonna swing down. So it'll basically be on 4. So
All right.
ready? 1, 2, 3.
What?
And that was not
It's okay.
as successful as I'd wanted it
That's
to be.
okay.
And also,
It's all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attempt to try to get the ones that are on the ground here to come hang out with us. There's one thing about bees, it either goes really well or not.
exactly. Well, they're really, when you only have 2 options, like,
Yep.
you know.
It's a 50-50 shot. It's better than gambling.
So take 2, we're gonna use this thing called a hive butler, which was actually developed to aid in keeping bees off of honey frames as you're harvesting honey. But then they also added this sweet little entrance, which I haven't even put the hardware on it to make it more useful, but it's gonna be very useful for us right now because we're going to shake the bees into the tote, and then we're going to place the hole at the entrance of the hive so that everyone else can just march back in. And now we're hoping that I'm a more successful tree shaker this time around. Let me just say that leverage on an unshaky ladder on a hillside is a very interesting thing to consider. 1, 2, 3.
Beautiful. All right. Look at this. Absolutely gorgeous. We got him.
Sweet.
Good, keep on smoking them. Got a lot of bees.
This is one of the bigger swarms we've had this season, surely.
Fair size.
So the queen bee has pheromones. We can replicate that actually with lemongrass essential oil. I mean, we use a product called Swarm Commander when we're trying to collect swarms, but ultimately nothing smells quite as good as the queen herself. The other crazy thing is that I think we've had at least 10 or 11 swarms in this peach tree alone this season. And so, like, chances are high that there's like some residual amount of pheromone on the tree anyway that just makes it smell deliciously like the place that everyone wants to be. Sidebar, I started keeping bees because I was absolutely terrified, like beyond a rational, logical amount of fear of bees due to an incident that happened when I was 5 years old. And so I thought, okay, well, getting honeybees and learning about them and having positive reinforcement, positive experiences with my bees will help me overcome that fear? Well, year one that I was keeping bees, I was just taking a little look at my hive, and my donkey Howdy came up behind me, got stung in the tushy, kicked the hive over, and I was standing there with no bee suit on, got stung 70 times from the neck up, and nearly died, which didn't really do a lot to dissuade my fear of bees. However, here we are now, and ultimately what I've realized is that I love keeping bees. I want to continue conquering my fears as much as possible, or facing my fears. But what I really want is a friend to do it with me. A, so I don't accidentally die while tending my hive by myself, but also so that you have a second watcher. And ultimately, Geraldine and James have been the perfect partners because A, they're far better at being consistent with the bees than I am. James knows more than I do, which is also a plus. And ultimately, together, teamwork makes the dream work. And I will say that this is the first time I've ever actually fairly fearlessly been standing amongst this many bees since that fateful day.
If you notice, there's a fair amount in the sky.
Yes.
But most of the cloud is now moved down, and you'll notice most of their flight paths are landing into this box here.
That's the goal.
We have
That's
everybody who's on the ground climbing up. I would say this is a success.
Since we have a little more time on my smoke break here, let's talk a little bit about why bees swarm in the first place. So why did they leave the hive and come over to this tree? Why are they doing that so much this year as opposed to other years? And the answer to that is bees basically tend to make a home in their hive. That hive can happen out in nature, but we are here cultivating the bees. We have them in 8-frame boxes, and those 8-frame boxes are where they draw out their honeycomb, where they create their honey, where they lay their baby bees and nurture the population of the hive. But ultimately, bees don't have a super long lifespan, so they are actively always breeding, trying to maintain proper numbers in the hive. And as there's a huge pollen influx in the spring, so this spring we had a very warm spring, and that caused the bees to start breeding a ton. And as they breed and then successfully hatch, their numbers have exploded, basically in their hive management system deciding, hey, these hives are getting too full, we have too many bees present, so we have bees that'll go out looking for a good optimal spot for them to live. And then bees inside the hive start turning a regular bee larva into a queen bee by feeding her extra. As they're feeding this queen cell, the bees are out actively looking for a new place for the new hive to live. And ultimately what they'll do is a group of bees will, having successfully raised a queen, leave with that queen to go live in a new spot. And the other thing too is that the queen is actually pretty lazy. She doesn't like to fly very long or very far. She's a little bit fat because they fed her extra and everything. So they will leave the hive together as a swarm. They'll find a spot to land while they regroup and then ultimately go on to that previously decided location. And this peach tree has been the gathering point for so many swarms this spring because it's close enough to the hive that they're able to just gather there and kind of be, have a good spot to hang out for a little bit, but then ultimately decide what their flight path is going to be like longer term. I think we're out of the tree. I think we've got no more bees up here. We're going to have smoked peaches. Let's talk a little bit about our toolkit too. If you've ever played with Legos as a kid, you might have had a sheet that you dumped all the Legos out onto so that you could very easily pick up all the Legos at once and then drop them into the storage tote that you keep your Legos in. And we have the same idea here with the bees. We want to be able to have something ideally that if we miss the box, we get it all on the sheet, but we slightly missed the sheet this time, so it didn't do exactly what we needed to do. I mean, you also notice, why is everything white? Why do we have a white sheet? Why do we have a white outfits? White is a calming color for bees. They're naturally attracted to bright colors like flowers, where they get their pollen. We don't want to have colors anywhere that we don't want the bees. Also, in my extreme fear of bees, I usually do a little pre-ritual where I smoke my entire outfit in hopes that it smells like smoke and they don't want to land on me, but I didn't do that today. We'll also see other very interesting bee behavior. We've got little tushies in the air, waving like they don't care.
Nazanog. So Nazanoggin is when the bees are putting their bums in the air in a beautiful dance to tell everyone this is home, come here. What's going to happen now they're really deciding now that this is home and that they're okay with where we've put them, which ultimately it's a pretty good looking hive. So I've put the cover on here. It's pretty full of bees. We might have needed a second box. In the next few days here, I will be giving them another box so they can grow in there. When it gets dark here tonight, all of the foragers will have gone to bed as well. I will come out here, I will close the top, I will get a screen for the bottom, and I will ratchet strap the whole thing together so it can move as one. I will then move it to a new location, and I will open it up for them to be able to go in and out and establish their new location.
It also is fairly important to mention that with bees, they only ever want to move 3 feet or 3 miles. So because we've dropped the hive right here, we could risk it and put them, you know, back where they came from, kind of, and they'll probably figure out their new paths and be totally fine. But are you probably going to take this to one of the other locales?
We will move this to another location,
yeah.
Yes. And most likely in the next few days we'll have a swarm at the other location with someone else, and those will end up coming and taking the spot where these could have gone, but did not go.
So I've always found that 3 feet or 3 miles thing really interesting because, you know, I have swarm traps all over the farm. In fact, we've got a couple hives up there that we caught in swarms last year, and we broke that rule and it worked okay. But the reason that we were able to do so is because we waited for a rainy, week of weather. We put a bunch of food inside the hive, we locked up the hive, we put it in the new location, which was actually really only 300 feet away, which is a real no-no as far as beekeeping goes. But then after a week of feeding them inside the hive, they then had to reestablish their flight patterns anyway. So when they did that, they just settled in and everything was fine. But the general rule is a good rule for a reason. 3 feet or 3 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that little butt dance. So cute. Hey guys, we're home. This is the bee equivalent of one of those, the painted signs that says, all are welcome here. Or, be our guests. Oh, the doormat
Yep.
at the tiny house.
Yep.
And also I should say that you might not be able to recognize Geraldine at the moment because of her bee suit, but she is one and the same from our tiny house video that we released a few months ago. This is now my 8th year keeping bees, and I have chronicled that entire journey on my Squarespace website, annofalltrades.com. If you want to learn more about why we have bees here on the homestead, see what it's like to actually collect a honey harvest, and learn more about the story that incited me actually keeping bees in the first place, head on over to annofalltrades.com and check out my blog. Squarespace has been a fantastic resource for someone who's not super tech savvy like me to collect the last 12 years of learning all these homesteady type things and sharing them with the world on a beautiful artist design template. In addition to the blog, Squarespace allows me to host an online store where I can sell merchandise and products and online classes, and pretty soon in-person classes at the School of All Trades that we're building here as well. If you're interested in starting a website of your own, go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/annofalltrades for a 10% discount. If you like this video, I have a whole playlist about homesteading topics that you can check out by clicking right here. I will see you in the next video. Cheers!